Hello everybody, welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be talking about the tropics for the Atlantic. There are two disturbances that I am watching, and there is one tropical storm that is actually out in the northern Atlantic. We covered this a few days ago. We did not think it was going to become much, and really no one did. It had like a 10% chance, but last night around here, somewhere around here, we had a 40% chance of something forming, and then late last night it turned to a 100% chance, and they issued their first advisory at 12 a.m. So that is now a tropical storm, not a threat to land. Right now, at least, we do not think it'll be a threat to land, so we don't have to worry about that one. But there are two other disturbances that the National Hurricane Center still hasn't marked, but I'm still going to cover them because I do think they will cause some problems. Okay, so you can see that through the loop, I'm going to go ahead and mark these areas that I'm looking at. So here's one area, and here is the other area, somewhere in there, and you'll definitely spot the disturbance. And you can see how we have these really high cloud tops on this one entering the Gulf. So by the weekend, this should be somewhere around here. Now, this other disturbance over here, if you look at it, you can see it's a little bit disorganized right now. It's not that organized. It does have some thunderstorms, but once we do get, throughout the week, we will see this move somewhere like this, most likely, but there is a chance that it could hit the coast, the East Coast, so we are going to have to watch this. Some other models are even saying it will come out here and then steer in, which will be very concerning because it'd have time to strengthen, then move in. I do hope that does not happen, but it's never, you can't rule it out, really. So we will have to see. We can't really rule anything out right now because all the models are not agreeing right now. Okay, let's go ahead and move into the National Hurricane Center. So the places we do have an advisory would be in the northern Atlantic once again. Sorry guys, I'm sick and it's school at 6:30 a.m. I'm doing this at 6:30 a.m. The most fun stuff is happening right now. I'm sick and it's 6:30 a.m. and I have to go to school. So, yay. Okay, so this system right here was the system that was down here near Florida, and it moved all the way up through here and left out that way. So if you do remember that one from a few days ago, we did not think it was going to form, but it did form into a tropical storm with 40-mile-per-hour winds. It's moving east at 22 miles per hour, so it's moving very, very fast. Now, the idea is that it's going to do some kind of loop, so it's not really going to cause any danger to land right now. So we're not even expecting it to get to a hurricane, but most likely it's just going to stay a tropical storm. I will just keep y'all updated on this just because this is a weather update channel, just because it's fun to watch. But we do need to focus on the two systems that could be causing problems down to the south. Okay, so that's all we do have for this. If you do want to see this, I don't know if y'all do, but there's a 60 or 70% chance we are going to be seeing sustained tropical storm force winds. So we do have a pretty good chance of just seeing in the ocean up there in the northern Atlantic of seeing some tropical storm force winds. So it's fun to watch, but it's not really going to be affecting us that much. So tropical storm Chantal is here, and our next storm, if I'm not mistaken, would be Dorian. Yeah, Dorian, and then our next one would be Aaron. So these two that I'm watching could become Dorian and Aaron. If they don't, they're still causing a lot of problems across the Gulf and parts of the East Coast. But they could definitely get named. So as you can see right here, you can definitely see where I'm talking about. There's our first disturbance. There's our second disturbance. So these were pretty much part of the same disturbance. So they kind of broke off, and one's going into the Gulf, one's going up the East Coast. So this was it's pretty cool to watch. But if you can see as we get into tonight and really early tomorrow morning around 2 a.m., you can see this disturbance moves west in the western Gulf of Mexico. So this one's starting to move in the western Gulf, and you can see this other one, this other one that's going up the East Coast. The second disturbance is over the Bahamas. So whenever we do get this to happen, some of these storms can weaken. So if this does go over land, like the Bahamas, it could It already is, but I do think that might weaken the system just a little bit, so it may take a little bit to strengthen to its full capability. Um, but you can always strengthen in these areas. And also remember, some of the models are saying to do something like that. So you really can't rule anything out. Now, if it does that, it's not as much of a concern, but it will still cause a lot of problems. But if it does something like this, it'll do way more problems um, that we don't need. So if we were to go to 1 p.m., you could see that we do have this 1 p.m. on Thursday. You can see we just have this really big area of unorganized thunderstorms across the Gulf. Really, not really organized. That's why I don't think they're highlighting it on the National Hurricane Center as of 6:30 a.m. But I do think they might mark it. If they don't, it's still going to cause a lot of problems by tomorrow across parts of the Louisiana coast. So we might even start seeing some problems from its thunderstorms. And you can see, and by Thursday tomorrow afternoon, you can see how it is over the Bahamas, that second tropical disturbance. It's looking a little bit more organized than the one in the Gulf, which is pretty surprising a lot of times because usually the Gulf has the worst of the storms. But that's a little unusual that we're seeing the one in the Atlantic have more than the one in the Gulf. Now, it's not unprecedented, and it's not like it's a huge surprise, but hey, it doesn't happen too much. Usually the one in the Gulf has way warmer waters and does way better. But right now it's not looking like it will be as good. But if we were to move into your Friday around 10 a.m., you can see how they both start to get their act together. You can see there's no real spin in a lot of these. You can't really see a really good spin, but there probably will be a spin. As you can see in the Friday, we do get a little bit of a spin in the one in the Bahamas by Friday afternoon, and the one in the Gulf has a little bit of a spin. It's not huge, but you can see it definitely starts to get intense. So by your Saturday morning, you can see we do have this disturbance across the Atlantic moving up. It's near the Florida coast with really heavy rains. And you can see across the Gulf, the northern Gulf near Louisiana, or maybe even eastern Texas, we are seeing some kind of tropical system I do think will develop. And it is causing problems across western Louisiana. So the European model has been saying this for days. It really hasn't changed its mind. I think it went through Texas. The model changed to Texas like 2 model runs, and it changed back to Louisiana. So it's looking like Louisiana, you could get hit by this one around Saturday afternoon. Now, if we were to move into Sunday at 5 a.m., we still do have the rain across Louisiana. This storm really does not move once it gets near land. But if we were to look into the Atlantic, you can definitely see this system that's starting to get its act together, has some pretty tall thunderstorms. It's looking pretty intense. You can see the clouds, pretty high cloud tops. Now, if we were to go through the afternoon on Sunday, you can see it definitely does have that pretty good spin in the atmosphere. Now, if we were to keep going into your Monday, okay, so if we went into your Monday at 1 p.m., you could see how this is really put together. So this is very concerning because it'll be right next to the North Carolina coast at this time. So this is very concerning to see because we're still, people in North Carolina are still cleaning up from Hurricane Florence, parts of Hurricane Matthew, which was years ago, and then also people are cleaning up from even Michael from last year. Parts of North Carolina got hit by Michael, and it was not a pretty sight. There was a lot of flooding. So if we were to go to around 10 a.m. on your Tuesday next week, so this is a little slower, but if we were to go to then, you could see these storms are already grazing the coast, and we do have a pretty good system in place. So I do think this will definitely become tropical if this does happen. Now, you can see by Tuesday night, this is already moving away. So you can see how even though it's going slower than the one on the Gulf, it's still a pretty fast storm. So I would I'm not too concerned about the rainfall with this one if it does just graze the coast. But if it goes inland, this could be way worse. But right now, it's looking like it may stay offshore. But of course, that'll probably change. That always does change. The models will change a lot by next week. So this could not be here by next week. Now, if we were to move into your Wednesday night, you can see this does move northeast. Oh, excuse me. This does move northeast, and you can see it does cause a lot of problems across parts of the western Atlantic. Not really on land with this model, but once again, that could definitely change. And you can actually see by next Thursday and Friday, this makes landfall. This hits Nova Scotia, so that's that could definitely be a problem across parts of Nova Scotia. I'm gonna go ahead and tell you, it's not gonna be snow. I definitely do want to show the people that think it might be snow, but it definitely will cause a lot of problems with the rain. So we will have to see what does happen there if it does take that track, because it could be affecting quite a few people and causing a lot of problems. So if we were to look at the rain accumulation over the next, let's say, 10 days, you can see how across the Louisiana coast we have around 3 to 4 inches of rain, maybe 5 inches. And then across a lot of these areas, across the Bahamas, about 3 inches. And once it intensifies, this storm could be producing around 6 inches, so a little bit more than the one in the Gulf. And once it moves into Nova Scotia, it's producing about 1 inch, 2 inches of rain. And then once it enters, as it keeps going, we have about 4 inches of rain. So these are both rainmakers. I wouldn't say they're the worst rainmakers we've ever had, but they will still cause some rain and some problems if it does get close to the coast. So I did want to show what I was talking about when I did say that. That one model that I said was steering towards the Carolinas. You can see how, so here's our disturbance. If we were to go into radar rain frozen and make it looks a little neater, you can see here's our disturbance across parts of the Atlantic. It's pretty, looks like it did on the European model. It's a little slower on this model, but you can see how it does kind of go out to it goes like east, and then it gets its act together, then it would steer in a little bit. So this model has changed a little bit, but it still does have that steering. I don't know why I marked that, but it does have that steering. So it's agreeing with the European model a little bit, but the European model is a little bit more west, but you will see how this does steer, and it gets really close to the northeast coast. And still Nova Scotia is the place where this could cause problems. But I would not be surprised if this can move more west, just because we will have to see. But if we were to move into the Gulf, you can see how the GFS model really doesn't show much with this one around the Gulf. Now, it does show some rain. It doesn't show a lot of organization, as you can see, but it still does cause a lot of problems with your rain. So there's two models saying we could be seeing a lot of rain with that one in the Gulf. Now, if we were to move to the GFS Legacy, so if none of you do know what this is pretty much the old GFS model, and it's just saying GFS Legacy because it left behind a legacy. I think that's what it's about. But this is pretty much just the old GFS model that we used to use. Now, it's actually pretty reliable. I wouldn't say it's the most reliable, but it does pretty good sometimes, so we definitely will look at this one. Okay, so you can see this is about where the European model and regular GFS model had it, across the Bahamas. Now, if it was to move, when it starts to move, it does graze the Florida coast, and you can see how this one stays really close to shore. So that could kind of weaken the system and not make it develop as much, but it also brings a lot of rain to a lot of the coastal areas of the southeast. Okay, so you can see what this model does is just really weird, but you can see how it steers out to sea and it's really, really strong. So we will definitely have to see what this is saying, because this is concerning. I'm not sure this was going to happen. I'm still with the European model and the GFS model, and it just keep moving north. But there's models like these that do make you doubt it. I don't think it'll get that strong, but you never do know. So if we were to move to the CMC, it does also kind of stay a little bit south, but it kind of does go out to sea and kind of steers a little bit, but then it makes that northern turn. So really the GFS Legacy is the only one showing it staying and then trying to move. It doesn't go out that far, but it shows it out here by the end of the 240 hours, which is a little weird. But if we were to look at the CMC, you can see how it kind of does do the same thing as the GFS Legacy, but it does move out. It's still really strong, but it does move out. So this is definitely my biggest concern when it comes to these tropical disturbances. But the one in the Gulf is concerning too. I will be talking about these two for the rest of the week, most likely. But yeah, guys, I hope y'all did enjoy this video. If you did, consider subscribing and leaving a like down below. And I will see you guys in the next video. Have a great day.